Interesting how life has a way of flipping the script. At 18, I stood on the doorstep of my childhood home with nothing but a worn backpack and the sting of betrayal. My parents had made it crystal clear, I wasn't their responsibility anymore. I stumbled through loneliness, hunger, and nights spent on couches that weren't mine. But years later, as fate would have it, those same parents who once shut the door on me showed up, desperate, asking to live under my roof. And that's when everything changed. Growing up in my parents' house felt less like a home and more like a prison. Every move I made was monitored, every decision questioned, and every small mistake treated like a crime. They had rules for everything, what time I had to be home, who I could talk to, even the music I was allowed to listen to. I tried my best to obey, but no matter how hard I tried, I always seemed to fall short of their impossible expectations. The tension in the house was constant, like walking on eggshells every single day. The breaking point came on my 18th birthday. While most people my age celebrated freedom and adulthood, I was handed a different kind of gift. My parents sat me down, their faces cold and distant, and told me it was time for me to stand on my own 2 feet. At first, I thought they were joking. But the argument escalated quickly, accusations flying, voices raised. My father's words still echo in my mind, "We've done enough for you. You're an adult now. Don't expect us to carry your burden anymore." My mother didn't even meet my eyes, she just nodded in agreement. The words cut deeper than any blade. Fear surged through me, twisting my stomach into knots. How could they just discard me like that? I begged them to reconsider, but they only grew harsher, accusing me of being ungrateful and lazy. Finally, my father thrust an old backpack into my hands, already stuffed with a few clothes, as if they had planned this all along. Tears blurred my vision as I stepped outside, the door slamming behind me like the final nail in a coffin. Betrayal weighed heavy on my chest, but somewhere beneath the fear and heartbreak, a small spark of determination flickered. With nothing but that backpack on my shoulders, I walked away from the only home I had ever known. The first few weeks after being kicked out were the hardest days of my life. I bounced from one friend's couch to another, never staying in one place too long because I didn't want to be a burden. Nights stretched endlessly when I had nowhere to go, and I would sit on park benches pretending I was just out late rather than admitting I had no bed to return to. Meals became optional. I often skipped eating just to stretch the little money I had left in my pocket. Every night, loneliness whispered in my ear, telling me I wasn't worth keeping, not even to my own parents. Their rejection planted seeds of doubt in me, and I found myself questioning if maybe they were right, maybe I really was a burden, a failure destined to sink. The weight of feeling unwanted pressed down heavy, but somewhere inside, anger began to burn hotter than despair. If they didn't believe in me, then I would have to believe in myself. That decision changed everything. I took the first job I could find, washing dishes at a diner. The pay was miserable, the hours long, but when I held that first paycheck in my hands, I felt a pride I had never known before. It wasn't much, but it was mine, earned through my own sweat. Slowly, things began to shift. With each odd job I picked up, stocking shelves, cleaning offices, delivering flyers, I managed to save scraps of money. Eventually, those scraps added up enough for me to rent a tiny room. It wasn't much, just a bed, a desk, and 4 peeling walls, but it was the first space I could truly call mine. I had started with nothing but a backpack, yet piece by piece, I was learning what it meant to survive. More than that, I was learning what it meant to fight back, to grow stronger, and to prove that I was capable of building a life without anyone's permission. With a roof finally over my head, life stopped feeling like a daily emergency and began to feel like something I could shape. I realized that surviving wasn't enough, I wanted to thrive. So, I pushed myself back into education, taking night classes after long shifts. Some days, exhaustion nearly broke me, and I questioned whether I was aiming too high. I stumbled through countless job interviews, collecting rejection after rejection. Each no felt like a reminder of my parents' words, but I refused to let it define me. Eventually, persistence paid off. I landed an entry-level office job, not glamorous, but it was steady. I worked harder than anyone else, volunteering for tasks others avoided, learning skills on my own time, and refusing to complain. Slowly, I climbed the ladder, one small promotion at a time. The first time my boss called me reliable, I nearly laughed. Reliable was the last thing my parents had ever called me. With a steady paycheck came savings, and with savings came freedom. I stopped counting pennies at the grocery store and started building a future. Along the way, I formed new friendships with people who believed in me, who saw my worth without conditions. For the first time, I felt surrounded not by criticism but by encouragement. One of those friendships even blossomed into something deeper, a partner who stood by me when the memories of rejection threatened to pull me under. But the biggest moment came the day I held the keys to my own apartment. Walking into that empty space, I felt an overwhelming wave of pride. The walls were bare, the floors scuffed, but it was mine, every inch earned through resilience, sweat, and stubborn determination. I didn't just buy a place to live, I bought proof that I could stand on my own, without the approval or support of the people who had once abandoned me. I had built a new life from the ground up, and for the first time, I truly believed I belonged in it. Years passed before I heard from my parents again. By then, my life had steadied into something I could be proud of. That's why their sudden phone call felt like a ghost reaching out from the past. Their voices, once sharp and commanding, were subdued now, almost fragile. I later learned they had lost nearly everything, financial troubles, debts they couldn't outrun, and a string of poor decisions that left them with no home to return to. My father's health had begun to fail, and my mother sounded tired in a way I had never heard before. When they showed up at my doorstep, the irony hit me like a wave. The very house they had once deemed me unworthy to stay in was now the shelter they were begging to enter. They smiled too politely, their eyes darting around nervously, trying to mask their desperation. It was awkward, almost surreal, to see the people who had slammed the door on me now waiting for me to open mine. Inside me, emotions clashed violently. Anger rose, fueled by old wounds that never fully healed, but compassion tugged at me too, whispering that they were still my parents, no matter how flawed. Was I supposed to welcome them back after all the pain? Or would turning them away finally balance the scales? As I stood there, I couldn't ignore the cruel twist of fate. The house I had fought so hard to build, brick by brick, was now the only place my parents wanted to be. In that moment, I realized life had given me the upper hand, not in revenge, but in choice. My parents once decided my fate, and now I could decide theirs. Did I forgive them? Maybe. Did I let them move in? That's my secret. But one thing is certain, being thrown out at 18 broke me, yet rebuilding from nothing made me stronger than I ever imagined. Sometimes, the best closure isn't slamming the door but proving you were always strong enough to open your own.